Hey, good morning. Welcome to Godly Business. I'm Frank Hernandez, and this is Godly Business, where godly business is good business. We're going to be covering a passage today. It's going to be pretty long, but I think it's a beautiful passage it's pretty tragic, but it's encouraging in the end, about setting sail in your business, about becoming shipwrecked, going through the storm, getting bitten by vipers. But when you come out the other end, people look at you as a god. It's a pretty neat story. I hope you enjoy it. We're going to go start reading through it, and it's actually going to be a good long read. But I hope you'll hang in there with me, because a lot of us are going to see ourselves in here, and a lot of us are going to say, when do we get victorious? And I want to encourage you today, because there's so many people. I'm driving down the main street, seeing all the for sale signs and all the lease signs up on all the properties. A lot of businesses are going under. Businesses that have been there for 20, 30 years, for 50 years are going under. I'm struggling in my business. This feels like a story of me, and I hope you can find yourself in the story and take away, have your pad and pencil, take notes, annotate your Bible. I'm reading from the New King James, which is a little easier to read than the King James Bible. And since I'm not going to be doing a really deep exegesis of the text, I'm not going to be doing any word study or anything like that. It's appropriate for reading versus when you're actually doing serious Bible study. But it starts out in Acts 27. A little bit of background for you. Paul is going on his last journey. This is it. He's going to go to Rome. He appealed to Caesar because he's being judged what he feels is unjustly, and he appealed to the highest court in the land, which is Caesar himself, the emperor. And he's on his way now to Rome, where he will spend out the rest of his days, and according to history, beheaded there. So he's on his way there, and in chapter 27, verse 1, we're going to start reading from there. And hang with me on this, because it's going to be really worth your while, I promise. It says, "And when it was decided that we should sail to Italy, they delivered Paul and some of the other prisoners to one named Julius, a centurion of the Augustan regiment. So entering a ship of Adramyttium, we put to sea," meaning to set sail along the coast of Asia, Aristarchus and Macedonian and Thessalonica was with us. And the next day we landed at Sidon, and Julius treated Paul kindly and gave him liberty to go to his friends and receive care. When he had put to sea from there, we sailed under the shelter of Cyprus, because the winds were contrary. And when we had sailed over the sea, which is off of Cilicia and Pamphylia, we came to Myra, to the city of Lycia. There the centurion found an Alexandrian ship sailing to Italy, and he put us on board. Now, so far, you started your business. Everything looks like, hey, it's smooth sailing. You're moving here, moving there. You're shaking it up. Everything is going well. And then in verse 7, when he had sailed slowly many days and arrived with difficulty off Cnidus, winds not permitting us to proceed. We sailed under the shelter of Crete, off Salmon, passing it with difficulty. We came to a place called Fair Havens, near the city of Lasea. Now, when much time had been spent, and sailing was now dangerous because of the fast was already over, Paul advised them, saying, "Hey man, I perceive that this voyage will end with disaster and much loss, not only of the cargo on the ship, but also of our lives." So now Paul is he's in the role of a prophet. Grab a cup of coffee. We're going to be here a while. And he's in the role of a prophet, and he's saying, hey, a storm is coming. You know, we hear it. We hear it from Wall Street. We hear it from the news. Hey, bad times are coming. Things are not going to go well. We're going through COVID. Who could have thought that a virus was going to paralyze the world? A worldwide pandemic in the age where man can pretty much control everything. And here we are. We're in the middle of a shipwreck. We're in a storm. And in 11, he says, nevertheless, the centurion was more persuaded by the helmsman and the owner of the ship than by things spoken to Paul. Now understand, it gives us a beautiful description of what sailing was like in those days, how they had to work with the wind, and that's still the way it's done today. Nothing's changed in sailing since that time. And we're talking, a couple thousand years now. And because the harbor was not suitable to winter in, the majority advised to set sail from there also, if by any means they could reach Phoenix, a harbor of Crete, opening toward the southeast and northwest, and winter there. So now you're in business and you're getting advice from other business people, and you're getting advice from consultants on what direction you should go. And everyone, the majority, says, nah, this is what you should do. And you listen to the majority. And the prophet is telling you, no, this is common, where we see it today, where we think you're hearing all these guys being prophets and saying it's going to be smooth sailing, everything's going to be fine, you're going to be prosperous, and everything's going to be prosperity. You know how many times I've sat in those meetings and listened to that? And borderline believed it. Except I know better. I know what God is telling me. What is God telling you to do? Are you listening to the majority, which isn't listening to God? Or are you listening to what God is saying? And the problem is, when you believe contrary to the majority and you open your mouth, you're going to be a heretic. Because I've experienced this in my business, where I'm telling people, guys, this is not the direction we should be going. Talking to other people and saying, this isn't going the way everybody thinks it's going. But the media and the press and the majority is saying, and you're like a prophet among 400 false prophets, saying, this ain't right. It doesn't smell right. It doesn't feel right. It isn't biblical. It isn't scriptural. And all the prophets today are banding together and saying, this is the way God is saying. When I look at scripture, God is telling me something else. And in verse 13, when the south wind blew softly, supposing that they had obtained their desire, putting out to sea, they sailed close to Crete. But not long after, a tempestuous headwind arose called Aeroslylon. Man, that's a tough one. So when the ship was caught and could not head in the wind, they let her drive. And running around the shelter of an island called Claudia, we secured the skiffs with difficulty. Sometimes when you're in that storm and you're starting to go into a storm, your tendency is going to be to just hang on and stay the course. And sometimes you're gonna have to it's just no way. You're gonna find the plan you made, your 5-year plan, the strategy you set up was not designed to go into a storm, to go headwind. It was designed to go with the flow of the current situation, the current market, what it is. You designed a plan that could compete in an environment where everybody was smooth sailing. The economy was good. We have a bull market. And now you got to let go and you're going to have to change course. And what are you going to do? What's the plan now? Because a lot of us have been there before. A lot of us are new to this. We have no idea how we're supposed to change course. And where's the plan B in case something goes wrong? "17. When they had taken it on board, the security said difficulty. When they had taken it on board, they used cables to undergird the ship, and fearing lest that they should run aground on the Syrtis sands, they struck sail, and we were driven." Sorry about that. 18. "And because we were exceedingly tempest tossed, the next day they lightened the ship." Man, you're being tossed around to and fro. You have no idea where you're going. The next day they lightened the ship. Here is one thing I had to learn in the middle of this COVID storm. I had to lighten my ship. I had to get rid of some things in my life that I was holding on to. The problem is a lot of you guys, a lot of you gals, it's a little different for men than it is for women. I can't speak for women. I can speak what it feels like to be a man, to be responsible for your home, for the income. A lot of the time, you're the only breadwinner. And if a woman decides to go into business because her husband is supporting her and he's the main breadwinner, and she decides to go into business, well, it's a little lighter for her because she's got very little to worry about. You know, she might have some stuff like, hey, I contribute to the income, but it's not really earth-shattering. Other times you're a single mom and all of it is on you. I know all about single moms. I was raised by a single mom. I understand. So a lot of the times people are having what they're called the golden handcuffs. They've got the cars, they got the house, they've got the image. What are people gonna think if we go from driving the Mercedes and the BMW to saying, we can't afford it anymore? Not if we want to make this business succeed. Can we lighten our load? And my advice to you is to live as frugally as possible. Can I lighten my load and drive around in a Toyota on a $12,000 car and not care what anybody thinks? Because when you have that financial burden on you, and how many guys have I talked to this year that said, I'm afraid I'm going to lose my marriage? You see, my wife got used to the $10,000 vacations every year. And I'm feeling that if I don't keep making the money, I'm going to lose her because she didn't sign up for this. She didn't sign up for not having this lifestyle. And vice versa. When you look at the majority of reasons why marriages fail is due to money. When storms come, I was reading a study the other day. 75% of marriages that end because of infidelity. The reason that they end up in infidelity is because there is no commitment. Which is funny because about 65% of employees right now, according to studies, are looking to leave the company they're at. There's no commitment. We have a society that there is no commitment. I didn't sign up for the bad things. I signed up for the good things. The D word, divorce word, is in the mouth. That if it doesn't work out, it's not for better or for worse. It's not for richer or for poor. It's for better and for richer. And when it doesn't work out for me anymore, I didn't sign up for this. I'm out. I've personally experienced this in my life. I can talk to you from experience. People today have this idea of that they are entitled to something, that they are the enormous amount of people, and I'm speaking because I understand it, that are suffering from self-esteem, depression, anxiety, and when things get tough, they cut and run, they bail. This is a reality that we're facing, and as Christian people, if that's in your heart, you've got a lot of dealing to do to stick to things. Because do you cut and run every time something gets difficult? You're not going to make it in business. But you do have to learn to lighten your load. I had to lighten my load many years ago when I was involved in ministry, and then all of a sudden I had to start my business, and I had to decide I couldn't do both. I couldn't put 80 hours a week into my business and be there for everybody that wanted me to minister to them. And the church didn't understand. The pastors didn't understand. I had to lighten my load, and I said, I can't be involved in ministry, and I'm probably not going to be at every service. And I was a heretic because I was walking away from God. That's the pressure. The reality of being a Christian, being involved in the church, and saying, guys, I got to do what's best for my family right now. I got to start this new business. It's going to demand a lot from me. What I need is your prayer. I need your support. And what you get is, well, you're just, you need to put everything in the balance. You need to balance everything. This is from pastors that I was serving under that later lost their church and then are no longer in church today serving God. Because I go to church now when I have time. When you were in the pulpit, you said something different. And this is the things that we have to deal with as business people, that people around you are not going to understand. Being an entrepreneur is lonely a lot of the time. You got to lighten the load. You got to learn to say, I can't be in this and I can't be in that and I can't for a while, for a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years. I can't. I gotta lighten my load. On the third day, they threw the ship's tackle overboard with their own hands. We're not going to be able to fish. We're not going to be able to catch food. We're going to have to do without a couple of things. Are you willing to do without now, before you're in that situation, and then have to make that decision? Now, when neither sun nor stars appeared for many days, and no small tempest beat on us. All hope that we would be saved was finally given up. You're going to go through a dark time. We're going through a dark time. This is a dark time in our history. For a lot of people, businesses, there's no hope. This is not going to be saved. We're taking a beating so bad. We're bleeding so bad. You take the PPP money, and it only lasts, for 3 months. If you're lucky, you had to lay people off. You're running the business now by yourself, working 80 hours a week. And your kids are stressed, your wife is stressed, everyone in the home is stressed because you can't see how you're going to get out of this. Oh, I know. Believe me, I know. I can sympathize and I can empathize with you both. And I'm telling you that I'm going through it, that all of this is something I'm going through. If I'm going through it, you're going through it. Other people are going through it. "21. But after long abstinence from food, Paul stood in the midst of them and said, 'Men, you should have listened to me and not have sailed from Crete and incurred this disastrous loss.'" You listened to everybody, and now you're in the middle of this situation and you just can't jump ship. You can't abandon it. You can't do anything. I mean, I'm around people in groups and giving me advice how I should be growing my business. And I said, here's the problem. I know people that are doing that and they're losing their mind. I want fruit in my life. I want the fruit of the Spirit. I want peace. I want joy. I want gentleness. I want self-control. I don't want to put my business and myself in a situation because everybody's growing around me at 50% that I feel that I have to grow at that rate or I have to do those things. I'm being very conservative. I'm being very prudent, trying to conserve the money. I lightened my load. I got rid of a bunch of things, got rid of debt. I'm actually putting money away for the first time in a year, actually in more than a year, that I was able to save money, that I was able to make an investment. I made an investment in my 401k. I made an investment in stocks. I made an investment in savings because I'm not listening to everybody. And it's still in the middle of a storm and I'm still seeing no way out of this, but I know there's a way. You're going to have to abstain from things. You're going to have to say, no more dinners out. No more going out for a while. No more doing certain things. And I mean, even no more ordering, $20 meals every day out because it's getting delivered now to your house. It is so convenient. Where do you save $500 a month? Where can we just tighten this belt? And if we have to get rid of the cars, get rid of the cars. If we got to get rid of the jewelry, get rid of the jewelry. It's tough. Don't be so attached to your stuff that you can't get rid of it because it owns you. Dump your stuff. And now I urge you to take heart, for there will be no loss of life among you, but only of the ship. Guess what? Your lives will be saved, and you're going to lose a ship. You might lose your business. You can walk away, you can rebuild, you can do it again. You can always build a new ship. You can't rebuild a loss of life. You can't rebuild sometimes your marriage. But you can rebuild another ship. For there stood by me this night an angel of God, whom I belong and who I serve, saying, "Do not be afraid, Paul. You must be brought before Caesar, and indeed God has granted you all of those who sail with you. Therefore take heart, men, for I believe God that I will be just as it was told to me. However, you must run aground on a certain island. There's going to be a shipwreck. There's going to be a shipwreck. You're in the middle of a storm. Hey, brace for the shipwreck. This economy is in bad shape. Things are bad. However, God has made me promises of why I'm still alive. Father died when I was 5, cancer when I was 10. I wasn't given the clearance until I was 18. Had a car fall on me that almost killed me. Had a drunk driver run in front of me at 40 miles an hour, almost destroyed my knees. Nobody in the car was hurt. I've been dead more times than I've been alive, I think. I'm back at it. 5th business that failed. This is the one that succeeded. I'm telling you, I've been through all this. Now, when the 14th night had come, as we were driven up and down the Adriatic Sea, about midnight the sailors sensed that they were drawing near to some land. And they took soundings and found it to be 20 fathoms. And then they had gone a little further and they took soundings again and found that it was 14 fathoms. Imagine this technology. This is amazing technology that these guys have to navigate and feel when they're getting close to land. Today, this is still used. This is the funniest thing. And fearing lest we should run aground on the rocks, they dropped 4 anchors from the stern and prayed for day to come. It's funny how unbelievers will pray when things are wrong. When everything is going, everybody's praying to God that they didn't even believe in, that they didn't trust. And as the sailors were seeking to escape from the ship, when they had let down the skiffs into the sea under pretense of putting out anchors from the prow, Paul said to the centurion and the soldiers, unless these men stay in the ship, we cannot be saved. That is an interesting verse. Unless these men stay in the ship, we cannot be saved. Then the soldiers cut away the ropes from the skiffs and let it fall off. As the day was about to dawn, Paul implored them all to take food, saying, today is the 14th day. You have waited and continued without food and eaten nothing. 14-day fast. I mean, they were really conserving that food. I'm having trouble doing 16-8 and keto and doing the intermittent fasting and not fasting for a day. These guys went out food for 14 days. And then 34, therefore I urge you to take nourishment, for this is for your survival, since not a hair will fall from the head of any of you. And when we had said these things, he took bread and gave thanks to God in the presence of them all, and then had broken it, began to eat. It's funny what he learned from the Lord Jesus. He did there. Sometimes we go crazy with the Lord's Supper and with eating and all the prayers that we have to do. And all the Bible really teaches us is to give thanks, to bless it, to be thankful for it. We think about blessing the food. Be thankful for it. Be happy. Guys, if you've got beans and rice and your family is safe, be happy with beans and rice. One day you can eat steak and lobster. Can you be happy eating eggs, scrambled eggs every morning? Can you be happy without eating Eggs Benedict? Can you be happy with simple things and just be thankful that you have it? This is a big problem in America. We have so much. and we have so much, and yet so many people are unhappy? Can you be happy with nothing and still be happy and give thanks? Then they were encouraged, took food for themselves, and all were 276 persons on the ship. So when they had eaten enough, they lightened the ship and threw out the wheat into the sea. Here we go, another fast. We got to lighten this load again. We got to tighten our belt. This ain't over yet. I think there's wisdom for us here, for what everyone is going through, that we can take from this. When it was dry, they did not recognize the land, but they observed a bay with a beach on, which they planned to run the ship if possible. Now remember, they had no anchors now. They had no ropes. They had cut all this stuff off. And they let the anchors go and left them in the sea. Meanwhile, losing the rudders, ropes, they hoisted the mainsails to the wind and made it for shore. All you have left, you got no anchors, you got nothing to stop you. You're going to shipwreck. And that's probably the best thing that could happen to you. I know it's not what you're planning for, but the shipwreck will save you so that you can build another ship. But striking a place where two seas met, they ran the ship around, and the prow stuck first and remained immovable, but the stern was being broke up with the violence of the waves. So you run aground in another place where you didn't plan to run aground. You know, your plan goes from bad to worse and goes awry. Even your worst plan goes wrong. I mean, guys, this is almost, I mean, you got to learn to laugh a little, because this is like, dang, even my worst plan has failed. I mean, what do you do? Then the soldiers' plan was to kill all the prisoners, lest any of them should swim away and escape. But the centurion, wanting to save Paul, kept them from their purpose and commanded that those who could swim should jump overboard first and get to land, and the rest, some on boards and some on ports and some of ships, some of the parts of the ship. And so it was that they all escaped safely to land. You know, your business is going down. You know, I just had a friend who was a consultant, and he had a distribution business and couldn't compete anymore. Helped all of his people find jobs before he closed the business down. He worked with them. He says, we're going to shut it down. We can't keep it going anymore. And he helped all his people find jobs. And some of them went to work for very good companies. And some of them work for him part-time now, doing other things online, because they were his staff of SEO people. Just because you're going down, a good leader thinks about his people, thinks about how he can bless his people, continue to bless his people, even when what he was doing didn't work. And that is the mark of a godly leader. A person that is not self-centered, is saying, well, my business went under, you know, you guys go fend for yourselves, because, you know, I didn't make it, so I'm bitter and angry. And therefore, you go figure it out yourselves. You guys were mooching off of me, and I was still paying you a salary till the very end. I don't think that's the mark of a godly leader. I think that is a worldly person that is self-centered, that only thinks about themselves. So now they wrecked, and it goes from bad to worse. For Paul, anyway. Now, when they had escaped, they then found out that the island was called Malta. And the natives showed us unusual kindness, for they kindled the fire and made us all welcome because of the rain that was falling and because of the cold. There's going to be somebody that's going to be there to give you some comfort. We think we're all alone. A lot of the times we are. However, I found people that, hey man, I get it. I understand. That have been there for me emotionally, spiritually. But you got to surround yourself and you've got to be at the right place at the right time. God will provide. He's not going to provide the comfort of the money and the food, but hey, there is some help. I know guys that are struggling and the community has stood behind them. But when Paul had gathered a bundle of sticks and laid them on the fire, a viper came out because of the heat and fastened onto his hand. I want you to think about this for a minute. Stop, stand back. Paul is a servant leader. How many people were on that ship? 250? And here's Paul out there gathering sticks. He could have said, I'm the Apostle Paul. I'm going to sit here by this fire. Why don't you guys go get some sticks? No, Paul learned from Jesus. You want to be the greatest? Be the servant of all. When you're shipwrecked, when you're hurting, the last thing you want to do is serve anybody else. You want to be served. How many times have I sit there and I wish I just had someone to serve me for once? And then I realized I wasn't called to that. That's not how God wired me. That's not my DNA. So I serve. Here I am serving. And my business is struggling. And that's fine. I will get through it. I've gone through it before. I'll go through it again. Figure out a way. I haven't had to lay off any of my people, cut their hours through this whole thing. And though I'm bleeding. And God will provide every single time, because he has. I've gone down to zero on my bank account many times, and that contract shows up. I lost $30,000 a year contracts during COVID. I lost that contract, a government contract. We were having 17 to 20% profits, and we go down to zero profits. The phone ceases to call because people are broke. We're starting to lose money, and I hire an SEO company. And after months of conversation and planning, I tell them how we want this thing to go, because I foresee that they're going to be losing my ranks. They totally tanked my ranking. Here's a website that's ranking 6,500 clicks a month plus. Some months in the summer, it's like 12,000 clicks. Producing 120 calls a month. And we go down to less than 30. Because they didn't listen. Because they were supposed to be there for me. They were supposed to be looking out for my best interest. I told them what I expected. So we're from bad to worse now. We're in a position where we were already breaking even to lose money. Now we're planning to lose money and bleed profusely for the next couple of months. What did I do? Eric from Digital Bisque, which is my partner in this venture, and a couple of them, says, I need you to come over and work for me full time. I need to turn this around, and I need to bring it in-house, and nobody's going to look after our brand the way we look after our brand, nobody's going to have the godly vision that we have. Nobody's going to have, no agency is going to partner with us and cater to us the way we need to be catered, because they've got 300 other clients. We got bit hard. We were doing, it's almost like the saying, a couple of guys wrote online to me and says, There's no good deed that goes unpunished. Here he is. We're serving people. We're honoring people. We're honoring our employees. We're honoring God. And we get bit. We get bit. We're already, it's bad. We already got shipwrecked. We lost the ship. We were at sea in a storm. And we're doing good. And we're getting bitten. It's enough to say, I quit. God must not be with me in this. I must have missed it. I didn't listen to the prophets where they told me everything was going to be smooth sailing. Everything was going to be. God was going to be with me. I was going to profit. I was going to do all this. And none of this is true now. What gives, God? Look at the 3 scenarios with the snake. What's going to happen in your life with these snakes? The snake bite is just the beginning, but I want you to see what happens in the attitudes and what you're going to have to deal with. So when the natives saw the creature hanging from his hand, they said to him another, "No doubt this man is a murderer, whom though he has escaped the sea, yet justice does not allow to live." You're going to get the criticism. You see? Where is his God? He claims to follow God, and God is supposed to save his business. Where is God? He's going under. He must not really be that good of a Christian. Because if it was, why would his business be failing? The judgment that people have, especially if you're going to be in the light, if you're going to be on social media, if you're going to be producing videos, man, are you going to have to take a lot of criticism from angry and messed up people in this world? Because people are angry, they're bitter, they're resentful, they're hurtful. They say things without thinking. There's no empathy, there's no sympathy. You're going to have to shake that snake off your hand. You're going to have to be willing to not listen to that and just shake that snake off your hand. Shake it off. He shook off the creature into the fire and suffered no harm. Listen, however, they were expecting that he would swell up and suddenly fall down dead. Oh, he's not going to recover from this one. That financial hit is going to take him out. That divorce is going to wipe him out. If he's such a good Christian, why is his marriage failing and his business failing and everything around him failing? Why, if he's such a Christian? See, God is not real. You're living an illusion, Frank. God isn't real. I don't need God because you have God and you're failing all around. I don't have God and look how successful I am. Well, is it Psalm 73 or 27 where the prophet says, I looked how all these heathen around me, basically, he said, are succeeding and I'm not. And all of a sudden he reflects on that, what he just said, what he thought. And he says, I was like a beast before you, God. I was like an animal. I didn't realize what their end was. You're looking at everybody succeeding around you. You're looking at the externals, not realizing that you're laying up treasures in heaven. Not down here. It's going to get stolen. It's going to get rotted. It's going to get, the moth is going to eat it. It's not the purpose. You got to build a business with a higher purpose. You got to be able to know that what you're doing, we're doing it. We're customer centric. We're doing the best job that we can for our customer compared to our competition because we make them a brand promise. And not everyone can afford it because it's very hard to do. And everyone's laughing at you. You're never going to make it. You're an idiot for doing that. Why don't you just go the easy way? Why don't you just do what everybody else is doing and forget about that nonsense? Take the easy road. Go ahead and cheat. Go ahead and lie. Go ahead and steal. Go ahead and treat your employees badly. Go lie to your customers. Go do what everybody else is doing, Frank. Get off your high horse. They're expecting you to go down. But after they had looked for a long time and saw no harm come to him, they changed their minds and said he was a god. You see, folks, when you're starting out, everybody's ridiculing you. Do you know you're not going to make it? What do you think you're doing getting into business? Most businesses fail. Haven't you read all the statistics? It's not a good idea. You're going to lose your house. You're going to lose everything. Stop it. Then you get into business and you're failing and it's the struggle. You see, I told you, you don't have time for us anymore. You don't have time for your family. You don't have time for church. And you don't have time for anything. Man, I've heard it all. And then you're going through that period where it's the trial period in your business. You see, I told you you shouldn't have done that. And then you make it out through the other end. And you're successful. You paid the price. It cost you. You had to make sacrifices. And then you're successful. And then everybody wants to be a part of what you're doing. You're a god. You're a freaking genius, man. Must be nice to have a business like that. Must be nice to drive that car. Must be nice to go on vacation. Must be nice. Everybody forgot when the years, the decades, in some cases, that you struggled, that you ate peanut butter and jelly sandwich, that you didn't go out, that you didn't have anything for your kids for Christmas, that it did cost you the marriage, because that's a reality. See, everything isn't going to be a bed of roses. Everything isn't going to work out. This is my fifth business. This is the one that I've been with now for 14 years. Are we struggling? Yeah. Are we seeing darkness? Yeah. But I'm surrounding myself with godly people who understand what I'm going through, who can give me good advice. You see, the Bible says that in wise counsel, you seek wise counsel before you go to war. And I need to surround myself with people and godly people, and you do too, that understand this, but they understand it from a godly perspective. That they can be mentors, and mentors aren't perfect people. Mentors are people that have gone through what you've gone through and worse, and they have the scars, and they have the experience, and they have the failure under their belt to help you navigate those same waters, to help you through the time that you're going through the darkness, where you're going through the problem, to help you. That's what a mentor does. You need to get yourself in your life, in your church, find businessmen Start having meetings with businessmen. Stop trying to network and sell your service and having those meetings for that purpose. Start having meaningful meetings. Guys, let's get together for prayer. Let's get together for a devotional once a week. Let's have some open, honest discussions about where we're at in our business, in our life. Let's get real. The most meaningful meetings I've ever had were these types of meetings, where we just got real, we got naked, we got in our underwear, and we stopped with all the pretentiousness of Facebook and being online to get anybody can front. We have to get together and have some of these discussions. How do we do it? I'm looking at getting on that new platform. Oh geez, I just lost my train of thought. Where you can have rooms and have conversations in rooms, little differently than Zoom, but it's for audio. It just isn't up yet on Android. I have to get an iPhone. But Clubhouse, that's it, Clubhouse. And we're going to be 10xing our marketing now. See, this is probably the biggest blessing, because Eric has been wanting to work. We've been wanting to work. We've been collaborating, but not really work together. And what he's doing now isn't really what he wants to do. Everything that I want to do in my company is what he's been wanting to do, but I couldn't afford him. And then I had to figure out, geez, what I'm paying these people, if I just pay a little bit more, 20, 30% more, I can afford him. And he's at a place where he also lightened his load and lives very frugally. And now, could this be the biggest blessing in both of our lives? That's the next journey. And I'll be journaling and telling you about how our business is doing and with God and moving forward together with this, because it isn't always easy. It isn't always this glorious thing that everybody, if you just buy my program, you're not going to struggle. If you just buy my program, you're going to succeed at hiring. You're going to basically, be this glorious business. I don't think that anybody can promise that. I think you got to surround yourself with good consultants if you can afford one. Get some mentors. Get in some groups. Start a business group at your church. Talk to your pastor and say, Pastor, my business is hurting. I know there's other business people. Let's get together. Sometimes the pastor will not know what to do in a business situation because he's never been there. Use your gifts. Use your talents to help raise other people up. Step away from your situation and your problem for a moment and have empathy and get into somebody else's. Watch how God starts working in your life. Start giving when you have nothing to give. You can give your time. You don't have money, but you can give maybe your time. Maybe you can give your advice. You can give comfort. You can give a prayer. There's something always that we can give in the middle of this. Hey, this is Frank Hernandez with Godly Business. Have a great Sunday, guys.